Good afternoon. I just concluded delivering marks to the New York State District Attorneys Association, where I had a chance to, first of all, commend the representatives of over 62 counties and their staff and their clerks for the extraordinary work they do in partnership with the state of New York to keep all of us safe. It's my top priority. I rely on them intently to make sure that we tackle the problems of the day. And as people know, when I first became governor 2.5 years ago, we had an enormous surge in crime, violent crimes, crimes of property. Murders and shootings were up on a trajectory that we never knew when it was going to end. And I'm really proud that we can say now that we're in a much better place. And if we all recall that the court system was paralyzed during the pandemic, there was a decision made that they couldn't assemble any juries because you had to sit 6 feet apart. Well, imagine what that did to the pre-existing backlog. It just made it horrendous, and a lot of people never got their day in court. Victims did not get their justice, and so we had to move out of that system of high crime rates, mistrust in the system, as well as a court system that was immobilized. So we've had to make unprecedented investments to right the ship, and we gave last year DAs $130 million to implement discovery reform and create a fair and efficient court system. We also had to clarify our bail laws, and this was something I said from day one was one of my top priorities. We made some changes my first budget in 2022. We did it again in 2023. All of this in consultation with our district attorneys to make sure that we are talking about changes that they could actually implement. That collective approach is now working. Gun violence is back to historic lows. We brought down shootings by over 1/3, and district attorneys truly have a critical role to play. We also want to make sure that you hear from individuals about how we are making those changes. I'm proud to be here with the president of this association, District Attorney John Flynn, who will share how Erie County is effectively using the bail laws that have now been changed. We have Westchester DA Mimi Roca who will discuss how her county is partnering with the state to combat hate crimes. Queens District Attorney Melinda Katz will talk about their state-of-the-art approach to ending domestic violence and protecting women and families. And Brooklyn DA Eric Gonzalez will talk about the importance of addressing organized retail theft and repeat offenders. Everything they work on aligns with our priorities in the state. That's why, for the first time ever, we are funding these district attorneys at unprecedented levels. Gun violence money, $347 million. And also, I'm proposing now to launch $40 million to help all across the state, our district attorneys, our local law enforcement, our state police, to have the resources they need to tackle the retail theft things and to give them the tools they need to punish domestic abusers, another $40 million so they can do their jobs, have the staff they need, be able to make sure that these perpetrators are brought to justice. So we're also going to make sure that we have all you need. We're going to continue changing laws. We'll continue to make sure you have the resources you need. And I also want to acknowledge the presence of our new superintendent of the state police has joined us as well, and I want to make sure that we recognize his collaboration and what he'll be doing to work closely with our district attorneys. So with that, I want to make sure that people know we are united. We are standing firmly against crime, protect the people of our state, and make public safety our shared mission so all New Yorkers can have that sense of security that they deserve. And with that, I'll turn it over to District Attorney Flynn from Erie County. All right.
Thank you, Governor. When the governor took over 2.5 years ago, she immediately recognized that the bail reform, the changes that were made to bail that were quite frankly unprecedented in 2020 needed to be changed, needed to be fixed. And like she said, she did that. She did that in her first year, and again, she did it last year. The changes that were made last year of eliminating the least restrictive measures, and on top of that, allowing for the first time ever in New York State, a harm analysis to be factored in when a judge can put bail on someone, made an enormous impact. What we're seeing in Erie County now is pretty much any time there is a repeat offender, I am able to now go into court and argue to a judge that we have a harm situation here. I say, Judge, he previously or she previously committed a crime where there was harm to someone or property, and now they did it again for a second time. That ability to use that harm analysis, and like I said, the first time ever in New York State, is making a tremendous impact on public safety, not only in Erie County, but across the state. But the governor didn't stop there. In addition to making that change in the bail law, she gave us the resources that we needed to do our job. She increased money for discovery. She increased money for aid to prosecution. She increased the GIVE grant that goes directly toward gun violence. So when a governor sits up here and stands up here and says of the unprecedented numbers that we're seeing across the state, in Buffalo to New York City, of homicides and shootings, those numbers are going down directly as a result, I believe, of the local law enforcement and her leadership in giving us the resources that we need to fight gun violence. So, Governor, again, I can't thank you enough for your leadership. I can't thank you enough for what you've done for all of us in the DAs. We are honored to have you. All 62 elected DAs are in this building today. We had our conference here, and the governor found a time to come and speak to us and tell us how important we were to public safety. And Governor, what you do each and every day is important to us, and I can't thank you enough. And now let me turn it over to my good friend from Queens County, Melinda Katz.
Thank you, DA Flynn. Thank you to my colleagues in government, especially to our governor, who, is always there. And anything that needs to be changed in the law to make our jobs more effective, to make sure that we have the money and the resources in order to effectuate those changes, the governor's people are always there. The governor's always on the other side of the phone in order to make sure that she is delivering what we need for this state. I was asked to talk for a few minutes about domestic violence and the money that the governor is adding to the budget for DAs. It is particularly important when it comes to domestic violence. I will tell you that in Queens County alone, last year in 2023, we received 6,527 new cases of domestic violence in 2023. 1,349 of those were felonies, up 22% from the year before. We have to invest more when it comes to DV. We have the harm on harm now, and I agree with DA Flynn. It has made an amazing difference in the County of Queens and in the City of New York. But there is more to be done on domestic violence, and I think it's important to note, every time a case gets dismissed in domestic violence, every time we cannot pursue a case, that means that the order of protection is dying with the case, and it also means that the victims have no security. So we need to make sure that we are doing all we can to prosecute those cases, to convict the people that we are after, and to find safety for the survivors of these crimes. We also know that roughly half of the perpetrators of domestic violence flee the scene before the police arrive, and they avoid arrest. And that period after the violence, but before the arrest, is so crucial to us, and in many times it is days, weeks, months before we are catching the individual. Communications between law enforcement partners and our offices are enhanced with more resources and crucial to the prosecution. It holds abusers accountable and, most importantly, gives us the ability to protect and support our survivors. With early intervention and with intervention at a higher cost, we have pictures of the bruises. We have photographs. We have the evidence that we are gathering from the very beginning. We have proactive prosecutions, which are going after all the videos that we might be able to find in order to help our prosecutions. And on the other hand, with early intervention, we can get HIPAA releases, we can get the medical forms, we can get discovery collected, we can get warrants being drafted for the materials to prosecute these cases. So important, so much for the survivors needs to be done to make sure that these orders of protection do not die with our cases. And Governor, once again we are calling on you. Once again you answered swiftly. Once again you are standing up for the victims of this great state. You are putting survivors first, and I thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Gonzalez. I am the District Attorney of Brooklyn. I want to thank everyone for coming today, but I want to thank Governor Hochul and her team for her commitment to public safety. We're making great strides. You heard my colleague DAs talk about the decrease in violent crime, and that's a decrease that the people in the city and across the state can start to feel. Violent crime, especially the scourge of gun violence, is coming down in my beloved Brooklyn, in New York City, and across the state. And the governor's support has been critical to allowing those resources to flow into law enforcement and into the district attorney's offices to help bring down that gun violence. The governor, during her conversation with the 62 DAs today, talked a little bit about her executive budget. I'm not going to get into it, but there's more money in that executive budget for law enforcement and for victims. And it's so important that I'm here today to call upon the legislature to work with the governor to help that executive budget get passed so that we can continue to do the work of the people, keeping our community safe. It should be noted that as violent crime has come down, it has not per se brought down the general apprehension of fear that so many New Yorkers feel. People still feel afraid. And I think as district attorney, one of those concerns is about some of the quality of life cases and minor crimes that are being committed, but also the systematic looting of many of our small businesses. Retail theft, shoplifting, organized retail theft is a big problem in the state of New York. New Yorkers go into stores, they see it firsthand. It brings them concern. It's crippling small businesses, but it generally causes a sense of fear. And so this executive budget is doing something remarkable. It's listening to the concerns of ordinary New Yorkers, small business leaders, and district attorneys and police officers, saying that we need to do more to keep our small businesses safe, keep the workers safe, keep the store the merchants safe, the people who shop there, and try to stem the flow of retail theft. $40 million is being proposed to do this work, but the genius of this proposal goes beyond the influx of money. That has often been the solution. The governor is also lending support in unprecedented ways, and in part with the new superintendent, working very closely with state police to get them involved in the prevention of retail theft, putting squads together that will work with the DA's offices to make sure we're able to prosecute these cases effectively and bring down the crime. And I know this works. Last summer in Brooklyn, we started a pilot program doing something very similar, working with merchants to bring an affidavit program so that people would be told if they returned back to this location, they would be charged with a more serious felony. And what we saw in Brooklyn, and I think this can work throughout the city, is we know that if we're paying attention to the right people, it's a small number of people that are doing a lot of the damage, we can prevent much of the retail theft. In this pilot program in Brooklyn, I am proud to tell you, for the number of people that were served an affidavit saying they would no longer be allowed in those stores, none of them returned. What's that mean? It means that those people did not steal from those stores again. And so there's a path here to prevent crime. We all obviously will prosecute cases, but we want to make sure that we're on the prevention side. And I've heard the governor say that over and over. It's not simply us prosecuting cases that are going to reduce crime. We have to have pathways to prevent it. This budget does that. It provides money not only to prosecute these cases, but to try to prevent it. So, Governor, thank you to my colleagues here. There's a lot of work that has to be done to continue the progress that we have in Brooklyn, but I think the best of New York State is still happening, and with the governor, as a constant partner with the DAs, I believe that time is now, and we're going to continue to move in the right direction. This is a very preventable crime, with continued partnership with our small business leaders. And if we want true public safety, we all know that small businesses are the key to employment and the key to the sense of safety in communities. Thank you, Governor.
Good afternoon. I'm Mimi Roca, the District Attorney in Westchester County, and I'm honored to be here to talk about a particularly insidious type of crime, which is hate crimes. And I'm particularly honored to be here because the governor has been such a leader in this area. From the horrific shooting in Buffalo, I know near her home, where African Americans were targeted, and she was on the ground and talks about it so often and how we can prevent it, and in fact, immediately got to strengthening red flag laws as a way to help prevent horrific acts like that, to being at a college campus where Jewish students were feeling targeted. She has really shown just immense leadership, and it is something that us as district attorneys and in law enforcement are happy to follow her lead. We all know that communities around the country, including in New York State, have seen a rise in hate crimes. And most recently, though it is not, unfortunately, a problem owned by any one group of people, but most recently we have seen it in a rise in incidents of Islamophobia and especially anti-Semitism since October 7th. And I think what we all have to say, and the governor has said it, this is not okay. We cannot allow this type of crime and the rise in it to become normalized, which sometimes feels like it is happening. Everyone deserves to live in this country without having to fear for their safety because of who they are. Westchester County, my county, it has a very diverse population. We have cities, towns, villages, about 1 million people, very close to here. You may want to come visit. Just last week, we had a very painful example of how hate crimes can work. In the middle of the night, someone graffitied some hateful words on the storefronts of some Jewish-owned businesses in a local shopping center. And this is how hate and bias crimes work. Even low-level crimes like graffiti can instill fear in not just the victims who had that done on their store. You can wash graffiti off eventually, but in the whole community, the outpouring from the community. They in fact rallied at that shopping center. The community came together and had ice cream at the local ice cream store to show that they were not going to be afraid, because we have to do that. We have to show and stand up to it, because hateful words are a stark warning. We in law enforcement know that, and history has shown that it usually doesn't stop there. So law enforcement and prosecutors, we need every tool available to fight these kinds of crimes. We want most of all to prevent it, and the budget that the governor has given us with increased funding allows us to do more trainings in schools, to have more data vehicles available to collect information on hate crimes and bias crimes, to hire more prosecutors to do the work that we need to do. But we also, fortunately, have the governor supporting the Hate Crimes Modernization Act, which will make these tools more available by expanding the list of eligible charges that can be prosecuted as hate crimes. It will help remedy the gaps in our laws by ensuring that more conduct can be prosecuted and properly labeled for what it is, a hate crime. So like I said, graffiti, unwanted touching, sexual assault when motivated by hate and bias are just some of the examples of conduct that will now be labeled and prosecuted as such under the Hate Crimes Modernization Act. And we all know that being able to call a crime what it is, to be able to label it a hate or bias crime when it is motivated by such, it's important. It's important to the victims, it's important to the community, and it's important to our sense of justice. So thank you again, Governor, for being such a leader in this area. Thank you.